Meet the new iPad, same as the old iPad, except it's not exactly. This is the 2017 iPad. Depending on your revision belief system, it's either the 5th or the 7th generation. Some people include the Air models inside of the iPad iterations. Some people don't. Whatever. At this point, there have been so many iPads, who can keep track, right? So March 2017, Apple announced this. Well, they did it pretty quietly. They didn't even have a press event. They just put out a press release. That's when everybody thought they would finally refresh the iPad Pro and iPad Pro 9.7-inch models, a year and a half old respectively. But no, they decided to refresh the iPad Air line, which now is actually almost 3 years old. October of 2014 is when we reviewed the iPad Air 2. Been a long time. And you know what? Much as I like high-end product and all that sort of thing, that's actually a good thing that they finally did something with the original basic iPad line. And what they did is sort of make it the iPad SE. See, Apple is still learning about making affordable products. Other companies have a range of products, you know, low, medium, high, all that sort of thing. Apple does the high end. With the iPhone SE, they said, oh, more people could afford this, it would be better, and it's better than selling last year's model at a discount, because who feels good about buying the last gen model, right? You just figure it's going to be obsolete sooner and all that sort of thing. So this is only $329 for the starting price. Granted, $329 is not cheap Cheetos, but it's still a lot more affordable than the old $500 starting price for the Air line, the iPad Air 2. And of course, the Pro models start at $599 for the 9.7-inch still. And it's not exactly the old iPad. Again, what it is the iPad Air 1 casing reused. So it's a little bit thicker than the iPad Air 2, but 7.5 millimeters is not fat. I can tell the difference, especially if I look at it versus the 9.7-inch iPad Pro model, or even the Air 2. You know, you're talking 6.1 versus 7.5. It's still pretty skinny. It's still light. It weighs around a pound. So what's new here? What's more modern? Instead of the old Apple A8X CPU we had back in the iPad Air 2 days, remember the iPhone's up to the A10, the iPad Pros are A9X, we move up to the A9 CPU. So you're looking at pretty much the iPhone 6S processor inside of this thing. So it's a lot faster actually than the iPad Air 1, whose casing it's using. It's a bit faster even than the iPad Air 2. But you're going to be giving up some things. You probably don't want to move from an iPad Air 2 to this one, despite the fact it's more within reach, more affordable. Another new thing is you got a fingerprint scanner here. You have Touch ID, and it works with Apple Pay. It's the movie clicky kind of button, not the one like that's on the iPhone 7 that doesn't move at all. So another improvement on that front too. Obviously, because it's considered a latest generation model, Apple's pretty good about offering OS updates as the years go on until the hardware is too old for them to support it. This one should be supported for quite some time. And if you want it with Wi-Fi and LTE 4G both, then you can get it for $459. This is a 32 gig model, so storage situations improved too, because it used to be the iPad Air started at 16 gig, and if you want to get up to the really big storage amounts, you have to go 2 storage levels to get here to 128 gigs, say. $100 more gets you to 128 gigs, so $329 goes to $429, so you don't have to make $200 jump anymore. Another improvement. We're going to find out some more new stuff now. So clearly, Apple has drawn a line in the sand here. There's going to be a big divide between the regular iPad line and the iPad Pro line, both in terms of pricing and features. That wide P3 color gamut display, for example, the super skinny design, the Apple Pencil support, those are going to be Pro things. If you want the high-end features, well, you're going to have to look at the Pro line. But all the good basics are still here. You have stereo speakers, and yes, the iPad still vibrates like iPads do when the sound's kind of turned up loud. You get a Retina display that's 2048 by 1536 resolution. It's pleasant, it's colorful, it looks as good as the iPad Air original model screen. It doesn't have the anti-reflective coating and the laminated or bonded glass the iPad Air 2 had. So what does that mean? More reflections. It's going back to iPad Air 1 in that level. And yes, I can see the difference looking at it versus, say, the Pro or even the Air 2. There are more reflections. The icons don't look painted on. There's an air gap in the glass because the glass is laid on top of the LCD instead of bonded directly to it. Still, for $329 is pretty fair, and the competition in that price range, say the Samsung Galaxy Tab A 10.1, that starts around $300 or so. It has a lower resolution display, not by a whole lot, but it's still lower resolution, a plastic casing, all that sort of thing. So here we still get that nice metal casing, the pretty kind of Apple look, and a very nice display, just because it's not the best display out there for a lot of people, especially you're buying this for your kids, something just casually, you just want to watch movies, look up stuff online while you are watching movies, whatever it is, it's perfectly fine for that. It does have the oleophobic anti-fingerprint coating on it, so it doesn't get too smeary. One upside is Apple says it's 25% brighter, and we can confirm that it is compared to the iPad Air 2, which was ever so slightly dimmer than the iPad Air 1, thanks to that anti-reflective treatment and all that sort of thing. So far, the iPad Air 1 cases that we've tried with it do in fact fit on it. So if you happen to have an older case like that, well, it'll go on there just fine. Much else is the same as the iPad Air 1, so we're not going to cover it in detail. You got dual band, Wi-Fi 802.11 AC with MIMO, Bluetooth 4.2, GPS if you go for the LTE cellular models, and you get the same front 720p FaceTime camera, an 8 megapixel rear camera, which does 1080p video recording, not 4K video recording. If you want 4K, look at the Pro line once again. Battery life is the same. According to Apple, they claim 10 hours of use time. It does have a bigger battery than the iPad Pro 9.7-inch and the Air 2. And in fact, that we've found it has exceeded Apple's claims. That's pretty darn impressive. Now, when playing games, I mean, all bets are off when you're playing games. That'll drain your battery fast. But when doing just about anything else with it, streaming video, typing up something in Word, using the web, that sort of thing, we exceeded 10 hours easily. In fact, we got up to 11 and a half hours with it. So it's a pretty darn long-lasting tablet, which again still stands in favor of it versus a competing Windows tablet. It's pretty hard to find a Windows tablet that's going to last that long, as long as you don't need actual Windows programs, of course. And compare it to the Chromebook, that outlasts most Chromebooks. And I'm sure Apple has the Chromebook in mind too, because the iPad used to own education. And then the Chromebooks came along and, well, they've made big inroads, haven't they? So now we have an iPad that's priced the same as a pretty decent Chromebook, not the cheapest of Chromebooks. Of course, the Chromebook still has an advantage of having a built-in keyboard, but the iPad has the advantage of having a million apps and many, many tablet-optimized apps, which also still puts it ahead of Android for that. And there's a lot of educational apps, so Apple might actually get their foot back in the door with education with this model. So it's a pretty smart thing for them to do, even if it's not the most sexy and exciting thing that they're going to do in 2017. At least we hope. So how about performance? The Apple A9 CPU is clocked at 1.85 gigahertz, and the target audience for this is probably upgrading from one of the original iPads, that is the iPad 1 through the 4, and not the Air model so much. And it's going to be a phenomenal difference in performance here. So you can see we got a comparison single-core and multi-core for Geekbench, and the iPad Air is way down here, the iPad Air 2 rather, and here's us. So you got 2545 for your single core score versus 1785. That's a very significant jump. And we have the multi-core differences here, and we can see the original iPad Air is down here at about half the speed for multi-core performance. So yes, you are getting a nice jump, which is pretty good for something that's priced significantly lower than anything Apple's ever offered before for a brand new generation product. And for more of those exciting graphs, here we go for you geekier types. We have 3D Mark Ice Storm, which is a graphics benchmark. And to simplify it, here's our 2017 iPad score, 29,386. That's significantly above, wow, like really above the iPad Air 2 score even. So I can see where some iPad Air 2 people might be tempted if they want to give up the skinnier design and the prettier display. I'm not sure I would do that. And then the iPad Pro, of course, is still going to be the highest. It has the A9X, but we're not talking about a big, big divide between the Pro and this traditional iPad in terms of pure performance. So fast enough for your GarageBand, your iMovie editing, certainly doing things like playing videos and having many tabs open in the browser is pretty trivial as have something can be for a device with only 2 gigs of RAM, which is fine for Safari. If I was using this for something like a Photoshop replacement or something like that, I would like to have more RAM, but you're looking at having to go all the way up to the 12.9-inch iPad Pro now to get more RAM in an iPad model. The iPad, as ever, comes in one of those clean white boxes, by the way, and the usual 12-watt iPad charger and lightning cable, a couple of stickers in the box. That's all you're going to get with this. That's normal. So that's the 2017 iPad, the model that is more SE or affordable than anything else. And like I said, that's a good thing. More people can get into it. You were thinking about upgrading your iPad, but it was so much money. Well, now maybe that price isn't so bad. Of course, carriers, I'm sure, are going to offer it too with payment plans and all that sort of thing. So it's the new likable, modern, upgradable in terms of OS for a while to come, family kind of iPad. For enthusiasts, there'll be pro models, we assume. Apple's development cycles have gotten longer and longer. Hopefully before my hair turns gray, we'll see new pro models. But instead of, well, think different, they're thinking affordable. And who can complain with a company that makes pricey products like Apple, puts into more people's hands? I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this video.